they're in their 50s, they went through something traumatic, and they stop singing or chanting or things that they used to do in their lives. What I think happens is we get used to a certain amount of vocalization all of our lives. If you're a quiet person, you don't talk a lot, then your throat pretty much gets used to that, and your brain will compensate, and your brain hormones will adjust for your. So there's like two things to consider: how much you vocalize, and what the brain, the TSH, the thyroid stimulating hormone, is coming down to stimulate the thyroid. If you get used to a certain level of everything, that's you. If you then change that and stop, if you're used to singing all the time or chanting, and that's part of your daily routine, and you've done that for years, and suddenly you stop doing that, then your thyroid will get less stimulation than it's used to, and your brain is going to have to compensate for that, and it'll take time for everything to readjust if it's within its parameters, because as you get older, things get able to adjust less. So if you're doing this as an old person versus a young person, it may take longer or shorter, depending, for your brain to adjust to different thyroid stimulation levels. I mean, all these studies need to be done. They haven't been done because they're not thinking this way, and medicine hasn't been thinking this way. But I would want to see the interrelationship between different vocal patterns and your brain chemicals to show how it's affecting your thyroid. But these women stopped singing and chanting, and they went, within a year they had hypothyroidism. They were depressed. They get sensitive to the cold. Their diet changes. They gain weight. They lose their appetite. They're just overall depressed. And we had them do a self-study of singing and vocalizing every day. And they did, and within a month, their spirits were lifted. They felt so much better. I haven't had this tested with blood tests to show that their thyroid hormone level changed. I'd love to see that experiment. It's costly, and we don't typically do research that is biochemical oriented specifically like that. Even though I was trained in biochemistry, I know what it would take to do a test like that. So what we'd like to do are these self-studies where we have people try out an idea that fits our theory and see if it's consistent. And if it is, then we encourage this further research be done. Further research is almost never done because there's no money in what we're saying. I mean, this is chanting or singing. And, so the big picture is what we've imagined is happening is our culture now is experiencing a lot of hypothyroidism, a lot of thyroid disease. We think it could be because of people living in not using their voices as much as we used to. I mean, now that we have texting and email and just connecting over a computer, people do much more of that rather than talking on the phone. Or people living alone more than they used to. Families are smaller, kids are moving out, people are more isolated, and we have jobs that are keyboard operators and other types of jobs that don't vocalize. So when this is happening, as our society becomes less vocal, and we don't sing as community songs in the evening, we'll turn on and we become consumers of music and of singing. We've taken ourselves out as participants in vocalizing and more as observers. And the result is we're getting, our thyroids are not getting as stimulated as they used to. And I think that could be contributing to this. But I especially look for lifestyle changes that result in a person altering their normal vocalization pattern. So if you're an opera singer and you're used to doing that all your life and you've learned how to use your voice so you don't overstimulate your thyroid. I mean, there are ways of speaking where you can put the vibration, emphasize the vibration in your throat in different places. If you do something deeper, you coming from a deeper down type of a sound, it's not vibrating here as much as when you scream in a certain way. I mean, there's certain times when you yell that you blow your voice, and there are times that you can yell and keep it going. So people can train their voices, and I think people who are professionals at this probably get used to that, and when they leave their profession, that's when they might discover that the thyroid is now understimulated. But while they're going at it, they're probably okay. People who have been quiet all their lives and suddenly start yelling and getting all aggravated, then I'd look for the thyroid to have a problem. So it's all relative to what's normal for you. There was another interesting anecdote that happened was I had done a radio show and I got a response from a listener who was a nun. And for 2 years, she was in seclusion and was not using her voice at all. And she was perfectly healthy when she started that. And after 2 years of not using her voice, I mean, she was now hypothyroid. So that another anecdote that fits this model. So I think there needs to be further research, obviously, and we could find, do blood samples after a person yells to see if it caused release of thyroid hormone by the overstimulation. We should be able to do this. But I'm going to need cooperation from an industry that makes billions treating thyroid the way it does. So until that happens, what I suggest is if you have low thyroid, try stimulating it. Read out loud is another good way to talk to somebody, sing, hum, just activities that increase the vibration in your throat. And if you do that every day for like an hour a day, more than you're currently doing it, you should feel more energy within about a month of doing that, and try to make a habit of it every day. It takes a while for the changes for thyroid hormone to take effect. It's not an immediate thing like epinephrine or adrenaline. You feel it immediately. Thyroid hormone goes into the nucleus and causes DNA changes. So it's actually a slower process. So give it about a month. And then if you talk too much and yell and you've overstimulated your thyroid and you told you have hyperthyroid, I would try to be quiet. Meditate more. Don't whisper instead of talking loud. Try to calm your voice down and realize that it's that overstimulation of your thyroid. It needs to heal, and I'd give that a month or two of less vocal stimulation, and then you'll know your body will feel better. The symptoms that made you realize you had a thyroid issue will change and go away. You always say you can go to the doctor if you want at some point, but just realize that their treatment of drugs will actually inhibit your thyroid. Once it's relying on external drugs, your thyroid won't make its own. And they'll often try to destroy your thyroid so that it doesn't make its own in spurts that then makes you suddenly have too much thyroid or too little thyroid. So if they're going to control your thyroid hormone level, then they'll typically do it by getting rid of your thyroid. And then you'll be reliant on them for lifetime medication. And that's not the healthy way to live.